I've been very fortunate because I've always had the support of very, very strong spiritualists in my upbringing and my growth as a storyteller. And I was groomed from a very young age to be a storyteller and a herbalist. So I'm very fortunate that I've had then, you know, the teachings to rely on and to work with me. Like I really didn't think I would be a business owner. It's just something that happened because of the nature of the industry that I'm in. You know, to be able to own the content that you're producing. So, you know, you grow for a reason, and I'm at this place for a reason. Now, what am I going to do with this knowledge? Am I going to retain it and keep it for myself? That's not the Indian worldview. Our worldview is to give it back, you know, and so there are many things that complement how our ancestors once lived. But also, you know, that I'm doing fine as a business owner as well. I mean, we know it's tough enough being a woman in this business, but when you're an Aboriginal person on top of all that, it doesn't make it any easier. All it means is that you have to know how to maneuver in very, you know, tactful ways.
Just back to your own career, do you have certain projects you've done over the years that you are particularly proud of that you might want to talk a bit about? Well,
I take everything that I do very seriously, and I learn from everything that I do. You know, I've always believed that everything comes to you for a reason, whether it was projects that we've done on Sharing Circle, Teepee Tales, or Capote, and most recently Elijah. I mean, I'm proud of everything that we work on. More recently, we've done a lot of variety work like the Aboriginal People's Choice Music Awards and producing live events. And so it's, you know, I'm able to kind of work in all different genres of filmmaking, and I'm really happy with that. I like that. I like exploring, you know, the newer projects and now new media, you know, the whole talk of new media and HD and Blu-ray, you know, that really fascinates me. So it's, you know, I want to be able to bring that type of technology to the First Nations themselves. You know, we're still relying on radio to get, you know, to educate one another and to use as our knowledge base in storytelling. So it's expanding that ideology to the communities. And it's difficult if my own leadership doesn't fully understand, because they don't understand, you know, the power of what we can do with this medium. And I think with the movie Elijah, they really get it now, you know, because since Elijah, I've probably had 20 Grand Chiefs come and pitch me their life, you know, and including biographies of famous Aboriginal folks. So, you know, they're thinking about it now. But if they could start supporting us and right from the offset, you know, understanding the CRTC process, because I'm a trained lobbyist. That's what I do. I work for different broadcasters and gaining support in different markets. And, you know, in my opinion, we have to know all areas of business in film and television. So understanding what, you know, how broadcasters commit and how CRTC makes them onus to commitment and how they don't, you know, so.
In terms of the types of projects you have done at Eagle Vision, some of them go back to what you were speaking about, you know, about reflecting First Nations and Aboriginal voices back to the community at large, which things like Sharing Circle and most recently Elijah, because they really deal with topics and things relating to Aboriginal stories. Yet then you also do, you know, you've done movies like Capote and a few other things like that, which, you know, aren't specifically oriented around an Aboriginal topic or issue. Do you consciously try to do both, or do you try to balance them? Or when you're looking at what kind of projects you want to do, how do you make those kind of decisions?
Well, you have to build your company resume just like you build your own resume. And the more projects that you can do outside your comfort zone or you know, that area that people see you as. You know, for the longest time, I had only done Aboriginal projects because I felt comfortable learning in all areas of filmmaking, doing Aboriginal projects. And now that I know that I can explore outside of that, I feel comfortable with that as well. And I think the industry really likes that, you know, having an Aboriginal person doing things that are not Aboriginal. It's a little unique, you know, but it's like having a woman from, you know, from the woman nation doing something that is not about woman issues. It's the same thing, you know, so it's perception and people in the industry kind of getting used to that as well. So it's about building the company resume. It's about exploring what I can do. and the chances and the risks that I'm willing to take, because, you know, it's a tough industry. Films, you know, you don't see, you know, a lot of the recruitment for many years to come, and sometimes that recruitment is not in the dollar form. Sometimes it's, you know, scripts coming in the door for the next 10 years. So.
What are you working on right now, or what kind of things are you doing in the next little while?
Well, I'm doing a project with Bob, actually, a documentary with Bob Colbert with CTV, and I'm doing a 6-part series with the CBC right now, and another one with the National Film Board. And we do a lot of corporate stuff, you know, with Indian Affairs and Indian Residential School Resolutions Canada.
And what is your project with CTV?
It's a book. We optioned a book, and actually it was funny because Bob had phoned us and asked, was Bob and Robin, and asked if we were interested in doing this project with them. It's a book called Dances with Dependency, and it's a book written by a lawyer, a BC lawyer who is Aboriginal, and his worldview as to what would make the playing field even for Aboriginal people. But also, how do you what is corruption in our community, and who trained us to be corrupt? You know, was it the Indian Act? Where, you know, why are the chiefs taking the stand that they're taking in their worldview, and where did it come from? Who taught it to the people? Because the current electoral system with First Nations is not one that traditionally belongs to us, it belongs to someone else, but we're having to live in that way and make decisions based on that. So it's who is at fault here, and so it's a documentary on the real culprit.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's quite huge, and it has to be done in such a way where, you know, we don't go blasting, you know, an AK-49 into the community, but actually allow people to rise up and be victorious, because none of us want to be victims, and it allows for the community, the grassroots people, to speak up and feel safe doing that. So.
And what about the CBC project?
The CBC is the chronological history of Aboriginal people prior to contact to today.
Another big project.
Yeah, they're not easy projects, but I've been lucky enough to find Aboriginal people who are historians, trained, you know, certified historians with PhDs, and there are only 3 in the country, 3 Aboriginal historians that are actually Aboriginal people. So, and that know the full history. But also the kind of aggressive assimilation policies that were created in you know, the 1800s and 1900s, and the changes that had occurred prior to contact right from the East Coast to Hudson's Bay, and all the way down to the South. And we're talking about a nation that stood, you know, nearly 1 billion prior to contact, and the kind of disease that was at the time accidentally brought over in these ships and in the trade missions that had taken place, and how it affected the people, right to the you know, just the changes of the environment, and you know, what the people had to do to stay alive. So it starts from that time to today, and where we are today as a people. So it's quite huge, you know, and I'm working with Laszlo on that, Laszlo Barna from Barna Alper. And we actually have 3 projects that we're working on together right now. So it's, you know, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, you know, and it's the kind of projects where I'm able to sit back and look at my students in the past, you know, 4 years of New Voices, and go, am I doing the right thing? You know, am I contributing in the right ways? Are my non-Indian colleagues able to learn from what I'm bringing? You know, because it's not just about my people, it's about my colleagues as well, and it's about the funding bodies. Are they prepared? You know, we go through enough transition and changes as an industry without having all of these other things to think about and worry about, you know. But at the end of the day, as an Aboriginal producer, I have to ask myself, am I doing the right thing, you know, by everyone, by all people that I'm involved with? Am I sitting on the right boards? You know what I mean? Like all of these things, but also as a woman too, you know, I have to think about that other nation. Am I doing right by the women in our industry? So it's, you know, those are the things that I think about, you know, when I get a chance to sit back and and, you know, ask those kind of questions, because I think it's a question we all pose on ourselves, because we can work and work and work and work as independent producers and only think about our companies and our projects and what's right for us. But the way I was raised is you have to think of the community.